Okay, boss. So I say restrict, drop down, say single values. So I would restrict it for what? 2014. So there was an user who actually wanted to see data for only 2014. So what you've done is you've done the restriction for 2014. Now when you go to RSRT and run this query, does it show data only for 2014 now? Yeah. Now what if there is a different user who wanted to see data for 2010? Then what is it I would do? There's something else. So we have only one customer 20713 in this in the year 2014. So what if there is some other customer who wanted to see data for 2010 or 9 or something? Then what? So create one more query, restrict that query with 2009 and give him this. One more user comes in, so he says I want to see data for 2003. Then what? Create one more query, again design it for him and give him. Like this, if I have data for 20 years, will I go out creating 20 queries and give them? Doesn't make sense, right? So I would like to have one query depending on the year what he wants. Let him see the data in the same. So I want one query where instead of fixing the year as 2014, I would like to parameterize it. I should take the input from the user and then parameterize it into the report. Okay. See how do I do this? I'll set this over. Now instead of fixing a value, I'm going with what? Variables. Say create new variable. So I'll give the label of the variable as select year and some name of the variable z_var underscore year, and that should finish save. Yeah? It's z_var underscore year, right? Just move this. So instead of restricting with a fixed value, I'm restricting with what? Variable. So I get a variable screen where I would say F4, and I'm now let the user choose any year he wants. Let's say if he choose 2015, he gets to see data for 2014. Yeah. For example, if user runs in with say 2006, then what? You see data for 2006. So did I parameterize the query? Is my query definition is dynamic now, depending on the user what value gives in, my query runs with it. That is variables. You define a query, basically instead of fixing the definitions, you make those the query definition dynamic by passing parameters through what? Variables. So like this, by using variables, you can parameterize the queries, or you can make your queries dynamic. That's what I mean. Did you understand this? What is it? చాలా ఉంటాయి కదా. ఈ ఆస్కింగ్ కెన్ ఐ సీ ఫర్ 2 years, దాంట్లో చాలా ఉంటుంది. సో డీటెయిల్స్ ఇక్కడ సింగిల్ వాల్యూ బదులు విల్ సెలెక్ట్ ఇట్ as మల్టిపుల్ వాల్యూస్. I cannot change this. I'll have to go out creating new variable. I'll select it as selection option. What was source? So now you give 1 year, 2014, insert row, 2006. You can control that with something called variable represents an option. You'll see that, but basically I'm not teaching anything on the details of the variable. I just wanted to make you understand what is variable. So basically, what are the definitions you learnt about the query? You're making those definitions dynamic by using concept of variables. Clear on this? Okay. We will have 5 types of variables. One is characteristic value variable, text variable, formula variable, hierarchy variable, and hierarchy node variable. Each variable is for a different specific purpose. ఒక వేరియబుల్ యూసేజ్ వేరే ఉంటుంది. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, ఇఫ్ లుక్ అట్ క్యారెక్టరిస్టిక్ వాల్యూ వేరియబుల్, వెన్ డూ ఐ యూజ్ ఇట్ అంటే, ఇన్ ద ఎంటైర్ క్వెరీ డెఫినేషన్, whenever you want to make the restriction on a characteristic dynamic, you will use characteristic value variable. ఒక క్యారెక్టరిస్టిక్ ఇన్ఫార్మేట్ మీద రెస్ట్రిక్షన్ పెట్టాలి, కానీ ఆ రెస్ట్రిక్షన్ డైనమిక్గా ఉండాలి. యూజర్ ఇన్పుట్ బట్టి కానీ డైనమిక్గా ఉండాలి. అప్పుడు క్యారెక్టరిస్టిక్ వాల్యూ వేరియబుల్ వాడతాం. In the BEX reporting, let's say you're designing some query, you would like to do a restriction on a characteristic, but I don't want to fix up the value. I would like to make the restriction dynamic by using variable concept. That's where I go with characteristic value variable. Whenever, so wherever you do, where do you do the restrictions generally? In the query designer, in the filter tab, do you do restrictions? And do you do restriction on a characteristic inside restricted key figure? So you say amount where my sales channel code is retail or web. Are you doing restriction there? I can make those restrictions also dynamic. Whether it is filter or it is inside restricted key figure or inside new selection, wherever it is, if you want the restriction on a characteristic dynamic, then you will go for characteristic value variable. See, I'll show you. For example, this was a characteristic, right? Filtering. Am I doing restriction here? Yes or no, boss? Right click, say you restrict. With variables. Now I am doing restriction on the characteristic. So when I create a variable on this, what type of variable is this? Characteristic value. That is where one. Say I am trying to build a new selection. Yeah? So I am saying sales amount where my sales channel code. I don't fix it to retail or web. Depending on the user input, I would like to customize that. So I'll say restrict. Instead of restricting with a fixed value, can I go with variables now? So I create variable. What type of variable is this? Characteristic value variable. Let's say I'm building a restricted key figure. So I'm trying to restrict some amount. Some quantity. I want to restrict the sales channel code. Again, say you're trying to restrict. Can I still create a variable on it? What a variable is this? ఎక్కడైనా కూడా మొత్తం క్వెరీలో ఇన్ ద ఎంటైర్ క్వెరీ whenever you would like to make the restriction dynamic on a characteristic info objects or restriction on a characteristic dynamic, you go with what? Characteristic value variable. ఇది కాన్సెప్ట్. ఓకే, అది ఫిల్టర్లో ఉండొచ్చు, న్యూ సెలెక్షన్లో ఉండొచ్చు, రెస్ట్రిక్ట్ కీవర్డ్లో ఉండొచ్చు, ఎక్కడైనా ఉండొచ్చు. క్యారెక్టరిస్టిక్ మీద నువ్వు రెస్ట్రిక్షన్ కావాలి కానీ డైనమిక్గా కావాలా అంటే అప్పుడు క్యారెక్టరిస్టిక్ వాల్యూ వాడుతుంది. ఓకేనా? Next type of, what is variable? Text variable. We see the name tells you text is like free text. Okay? So we use this text variable when you want to make the descriptions of your query or of your key figure columns of the key figures, and also key figure columns and query description can be made dynamic by using text variables. Okay, this is a text variable here. Now look at this. Now where do you see query properties? Now go to query properties. And this is what the description of the query you have, right? Let's say when you're designing some reports like balance sheet report, or let's say I'm designing some, when you're designing balance sheet report, I would have a requirement say, always the title of the report should be balance sheet report as on today's date. Today's date. So do I want, in this scenario, do I need to make my heading of the query dynamic bus? So then I would use text variable here. Look at this. In this you see an icon here. Just click this. Now this variables. What type of variable is it creating? What is the type here? Text here. That is one requirement. Let's say now I have this key here. What is the heading of this column? Sales amount. Now can I change this description, which will affect the heading of the column? Sometimes I want this heading of the column to be dynamic. So I can make this heading of the column dynamic by using what? What is this? Text variable. నిజంగా వేరే బ్యాచ్కి ఏం కాదు, వీకే ఎట్లయితే. Okay, this is a description of it. I can make this dynamic by using this text variables here. I can say create. So type of variable is what? Text. So two, that is one. And even in case of say you building a